start.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you today. I'm Ranato Mores, as most of you know, and I am a direct apprentice of Carlos Castaneda, Florinda Grau, Taisha Abelar, and Carol Tiggs. And it's my extreme pleasure to be with you. I am wonderfully pleased and impressed that you enjoyed the videos. I'm wonderfully pleased and impressed that you're here with us today, that you're interested. That really means a lot. It means a lot to all of us at Clear Green. And some of you were able to attend the actual tours, the actual physical tours, which helped us compile all this information about the ancients, about the ancient seers, Carlos Castaneda's lineage. And so what we thought at Clear Green is it would be wonderful if we could share this information with all of you who might not have gotten there, you know, so you all could have a little more up close and personal realization, understanding of what the lineage of Carlos Castaneda is all about. So again, welcome. When we're looking at something that looks like a history lesson, that looks like something that's from the old times, it looks or reads to us as a story. And sometimes we think that, oh my gosh, that happened back then. It really doesn't pertain to us now. But that's the unusual thing, is that the things that those seers did then do pertain to us now. And this is going to be the focus of this seminar, as how then becomes now, and how can we use the tools of Carlos Castaneda's Tensegrity in our own daily lives, which is just like they did. Now, a couple years ago, Clear Green announced that we were going back to our roots. And this was prefaced because Carol Tiggs and I simultaneously were recapitulating our days, our times, our learnings, our teachings with Carlos Castaneda. You know, she had her own private times with him and with Dudman. I had my private times with Carlos. And so we were recapitulating those moments. And we were attempting to get to the core of his teachings. And it was interesting because what we both came up with quite on our own, quite independently, was that Carlos was teaching us to survive. He was teaching us how to live the best of all possible lives that we could in this world. Synonymous to this, or again, synchronicity, Carol Tiggs and I were also gathering all the information we could about the ancient lineage so we could put it into the tours, so we could also make these videos, put these into these videos for all of you. And, you know, Carol Tiggs had, again, her times with Dudman, the stories of the lineage he told her. She had her personal teachings from Carlos. Again, the stories he told her, the stories he told me, the stories he told me when I was with other apprentices. All of these stories about the ancient lineages were gathered together. We also had Carlos Castaneda's private library. We're going to talk a little bit later about how Carlos Castaneda lived, for sure. But his living room, I guess you would call it, or normally we would call it, had just a small couch in it. But it was three walls of that lined with books, floor to ceiling. And yes, we had the ladders to get up to the really, really, really tall books. But all these books were his, gathered from his anthropological studies, gathered from his many times to Mexico City and getting books about the Toltecs and about the Mayans himself. And there's a couple of books there from the library of Dudman. Now, of course, there was all of his first editions also. But that library became such a treasure trove of what was going on in the ancient world. And so Carol Tiggs and I put all this information together. And again, what did we find out when we did that? That those seers used the tools, these Tensegrity tools, the same ones we are using now, but the tools of the seers for survival. In order for us to see this a little more clearly, it's important that we step into those ancient seers, to, you know, their world, into their shoes. They didn't live with refrigerators. They didn't live with prefabricated houses. They didn't live with going to the grocery market. If they wanted food, they had to catch it. They had to kill it. They had to dress it. They had to cook it. If they wanted corn, if they wanted vegetables, they had to till the soil. They had to plant the seeds. This would take months of labor. If they wanted a house to live in and it was drought, they'd have to make sure it had proper ventilation, doors in the front, doors in the back. If they wanted a fire pit in their house, they'd have to put a hole in the ceiling. All of these things had to be figured out, and they had to do everything by hand. They lived for about 40 years, not much longer. And there were many things that they couldn't understand and they couldn't help. When warriors got hurt in war, they didn't have medicines. They pretty much passed. Babies were born, babies' miscarriages, not understanding what those things were. It was a very different time than the time we are living in. But yet, they used these tools for their survival. Now, I'd like to go through the videos with you, 1, 2, 3, 4, and look at them because you've all seen them. You all probably have memories of what your favorite parts were. Awesome. We're going to go through them, and we're going to look at just this energetic fact that this idea of the practical and the ethereal, of the practical use of those tools is in every single video and reaches in every single part of our lineage going back in time. And true to Clear Green and Carlos Castaneda's nature, of course we tell you that story backwards. We start with now and we go back to the origins. So let's look at video 1 together. What do we see in video 1 together? Okay, we see Carlos Castaneda's learning and his understanding of the Plume serpent myth. Okay, we also see his experiencing the Plume serpent myth firsthand in viewing the departure of Don Juan. And this was incredibly impactful for him or for any of us. If this would have happened to us, Carlos wrote about this many times in many different ways in much more detail each and every time. And what we also learned there is that the meaning of plumed serpent is the being that traverses earth and the heavens. The very practical, the mundane possibly here, the daily, and the ethereal, and the esoteric, and the myth. So this sets up our paradigm and the principle with which we're going to look at these videos through this lens, this coming together of both earth and sky in the plume serpent, which is exactly what Carlos Castaneda suggested, and I have told you many times, to walk with a foot in both worlds. Okay, great. So that's video 1. Video 1 was all about the Toltecs. We go to video 2. Video 2 is about the civilization next back in time, the Teotihuacanos. And what we see here is one of the biggest myths, one of the most profound myths of our times. And it happened at Teotihuacan. Anthropologists say that the ending of Teotihuacan came because of internal strife, because sons warred against fathers, and the how do you say it, the civilization collapsed from within. Well, the seers of ancient Mexico tell a very different kind of story. They tell the story that those people were dreamers. In fact, they call what is currently called by anthropologists the Avenue of the Dead, they call it the Avenue of the Dreamers. And that civilization very systematically, very repetitiously, very disciplined, lined up on that street in their particular formation. And they memorized and they visioned what they saw exactly in front of them. Some of them visioned the houses of the people. Some of them visioned the temples. Some of them visioned the weather. Some of them visioned the crops. But they visioned everything they saw. They looked, they saw it in their mind's eye. They looked, they saw it in their mind's eye. They held it here. They held a vision. And when it was time, they all lined up, and they, as the story goes, burned from within, burned, and went, all of them together, collectively, as a collective, to live in the dream time, in the world that they had dreamed. This is an incredibly fantastical story. But yet, what does that mean for us today? How does it apply to us today? In our events, we suggest, those of you that have been fortunate enough to come to them, what we impress upon you is before very important events in your life, for you to vision them. Vision the entire event many times, just like the Teotihuacanos did. Vision you succeeding at it. Vision you getting over your obstacles. And what that is going to do for you, it's going to give you immense confidence. It's going to give you an immense sense of preparedness. So you walk into that scene in real life, deliberate, knowing. And even if in real time, some of the things change, you'll be prepared for that too, because you will have seen and lived the scene in your dream before. Carlos Castaneda used to do this. In fact, he did this all the time. Us apprentices would occasionally accompany him to see the publisher, visit the banker, go to the accountant, do all the normal things of one's life. And he said we had a choice. He goes, you can wait in the car, or you can come in. And if you come in, you got to sit quietly, you got to sit in silence, because I'm preparing. And after we had gone inside and watched his motions a couple times, we finally realized, we finally asked him what he was doing. And he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, I'm dreaming. I'm envisioning my time in front of the accountant. I'm visioning shaking the hand of the publisher. I'm visioning the conversations we're going to have. I'm visioning the points I want to make. I am visioning this in advance. So I am going to be prepared. So Carlos Castaneda did it. It's useful for us to do it too. Now, let's move on to video 3. Video 3 is kind of packed with a whole lot of lessons in it. And one of the first lessons of video 3 is that, and again, this is the later Mayans. This is the northern Yucatan Mayans that we see here. Not the early ones, but the northern, later Mayans. What we see here is something that resonated with Carlos Castaneda a great deal. And this was the premise, or the principle, that acts have power. Acts have especially strong power if you do them as if this was your last dance, your last act on earth. Now, Carlos did this very frequently. He took his time with every one of us, with us as a collective, with anybody he met, with the clerk at the grocery store, with the man at the cleaners. And yes, Carlos Castaneda did all of these things which we do today. But he would give his undivided attention to that person. I'd often go into the local store. We live by a local store. We walk over to the local store to get a few things, And he would be engaged in a lively conversation with the checkout clerk. And it would be all about them, nothing about him. He never dressed, to be acknowledged in the world. It was always about them. But he put all of his focus as if this was his last act on earth on somebody else. And frankly, he became the most beloved person at that grocery store. But nevertheless, what would our lives be like if we did this principle, if in the ancients, which also the Nawals do, which also Carlos Castaneda do, of focusing on who's in front of us, of realizing that our acts, our interactions have power. Wow. What would our business interactions be like, our business meetings? They'd be more in depth. We'd definitely see more. We'd definitely maybe be able to see the motivations of people. We would definitely not miss a detail. What about our relationships? If we come home at night and we go to instead of saying, hey, hi, honey, and we go and we throw our briefcase down or whatever, I'm going to take a bath, and you go and you take a bath, and then you go on your computer and somebody else, there's dinner ready. Sure, I'll eat in here. You know, what lives do we live? What if you came home? What if you engaged in a deep conversation with your partner? Your relationship would be renewed every single time you did that. Your relationships with your children would be amazing. So acts have power if we do them with our commitment and with our focus, just like the ancients did, just like Carlos Castaneda did. Now, again, video 3 is just packed with things. And one of the other principles in there is that acts have power, but language has power also. You have to realize that how we speak is what we think. What we think comes out of here, comes out of here. So if our language is a certain way, we are thinking that very same way. So our language, you know, how do you say it? Yeah, the Spanish language, the French language, the German language, the English language, our languages that we're used to, has a different set, has a different way of writing sentences. First is a subject, and usually that subject is I, it's me, it's a whole bunch about me. Then the next word is a verb, it's an action, and then it's the object upon which I act upon, okay? The Mayans didn't do that. The Mayans had a language whose first word was a verb. The act was what was important. The next word was the object of the act, was what was important. And then last, whether it was the peasant, whether it was the king, last was who did it. That is a culture that does not put themselves first. That is a culture that doesn't have much self-importance. That is a culture that looks at the world from behind the scenes, not pushing to be first. So, how did Carlos Castaneda do this? Of course he did this. When people were asking him, now you need to realize that when we had Tensegrity practice, we had a lot of guests. We had apprentices, we had Carol, Tiggs, Florentana Grau, Taisha Abelar, and Carlos, of course. But we also had movie stars. And we also had production people. We also had heads of studio. We also had celebrities. We had, oh my gosh, you know, Raul, Julia, and Leslie Caron, and all these people were coming to our classes. And, you know, Carlos, in his usual style, he'd tell a story, we'd move, tell another story, we move. And the people in the audience who were brand new were asking questions. And they were, you know, they were going, wow, Carlos, you're just really at the head of this band of people and, you know, this nation, and you're the bestseller. You're just remarkable. And he would go, he always put himself behind. He goes, no, because you don't understand. My name's on the books. But Florinda, Taisha, and Carol, they're the dreamers. They dream me. And he goes, I'm their chauffeur. I'm their chauffeur. So, what would our lives be like if we put ourselves in the background? If we just let the world and people in the world do what they wanted to do without our judgment upon them, we wouldn't have any jealousy. We wouldn't have any envy. We wouldn't have any competition. We'd just be in the back of the room, not beating our drum to be first or be noticed. Please look at me, please look at me, please look at me. We'd just be back at the room, taking it all in. What an amazing place to live from. Wow. Now, also in video 3, we have very blatant that the Plume serpent god or divinity or inorganic, however you wish to call it, that the Plume serpent who was, how do you say, designated, he helped create the entire world. He was the one that created mankind. That this mythic character is equated with rain, something very practical. And we heard this story in the videos, but it's a wonderful story. And it's a story where the Plume serpent circulates in the clouds. And then on a certain day, he descends the major temple at Chichen Itza. And he travels the earth, snake, up into the cenote, and he dives in. And his act of doing that raises the water levels of the land for the crops and stirs the rain from the clouds to fall. And thus we see divinity and earth, myth and the practical, again and again merged. So let's move on to video 4. Video 4 is about the southern or the earlier Mayans and the Olmecs, our earliest ancestors. And what we see in this video is the beginnings of the tools that we use today. We see the beginnings of the movements. They were dance steps, gorgeous dance steps. They were visioning, and we see the recapitulation. What we see there is that the kings, the court, the queens, the royalty, because they were blessed, they were thought to have the greatest powers of divination, went and danced in the plazas until they were out of themselves, until they were possibly an animal, until they were somebody else than themselves. And in this state, they would then ask for visions, not for themselves, not out of just being able to do it, but for the community. When was my when was my heir going to come? How and when do I need to plant the crops for the people? How do I overcome this next warlord which is at our gates? How? Practical, practical, practical. So this is also something that you see in the videos, is you see one of the places has a recapitulation chamber. No one in the older times could enter the city unless they went through this recapitulation labyrinth. Believe me, it's a labyrinth. It is not, it's easy to enter and not easy to leave. But you walked in it, you sat on the benches, and you reflected about your life. And you reflected and you made amends for some of the things, some of your wrongdoings and your flaws. You said thank you. You got rid of what's unnecessary in you. You know, you put some things but just aside in your mind, and you decided to do different things when you got out. And the path through the labyrinth was not pre-established. Only if you were pure enough would you be able to find the way out. It was pretty dark in there, and they did not have any electricity, and they didn't bring candles in. They were just feeling their ways along the wall. That was rather intense, rather intense. But this principle of getting rid of all that's unnecessary before you enter into a city, before you enter into your daily life or something important in your daily life. Carlos did this too. His house, let's say his living room, didn't have a lamp in it, small sofa that sat two and a TV set. That was it. Hardwood floors. Nothing on the walls, nothing on the floors. Impeccably clean, but nothing. His sleeping chamber, small twin bed, tall, small, tall, but narrow chest of drawers, and a small desk that looked like it was for a child. Nothing was stained. Nothing was frivolous. Everything was just practical. So this ability to get rid of all is what is necessary in our lives. Think, what's that going to do for you? Boy, you're going to be empty. You're going to be free. You're going to be able to float. You will not be bringing your baggage around with you. And you'll be spontaneous. Yes, great, great benefit from leaving the unnecessary behind. So you can see that in these videos, through the eyes of the ancients, that they used these tools for very practical things in their lives. Again, Teotihuacan, the enemy is coming. The Aztecs were coming. Oh my gosh. And they don't leave a man, woman, or child living after they tear through a city. So what are we going to do? We're going to vision. We're going to dream. So what do you see? The Mayans dancing in the plaza for visions, to feed the multiples, to take care of their people, to name their first child, to find if their wife is pregnant with the first child or not. Again, myth and the practical together. So because of these findings, and because of us sharing of these findings with you, what you're going to find in the upcoming events of Clear Green is exactly that. This merging, this emphatic merging. Heaven and earth. Myth and practical. One of our events, it's later in the year for sure, but it's going to be in Croatia. It's our Tensegrity Immersion. And the purpose of that is to give anyone attending the same mood as if we'd gone to Mexico, as if we'd gone to Peru, as if we spent all these days in these other places. But you will be immersed in finding our best selves. And believe me, when you when you come into this event, you're going to start, we will be one way, and then at the end, you're going to be somebody else. It's going to start with a day of, you're going to have, how do you say it? Lots and lots and lots and lots of choices. Because you see, we're in this wonderful hotel, which is not across the street from the sea. It's on the beach of the Adriatic Sea. And it's got these big yards, it's got these big parks all around it. And so that very first day, so you can forget and you can leave all the unnecessary behind, all the travel, all the unfinished business, all the unfinished bills, whatever it was you're leaving behind. That first day, you're going to be wandering around in small groups. You're going to have your choice of going to drum circles and singing circles and role-playing parts, and you're going to be just learning new things and reciting new things in small groups. And yes, of course, we will be taking all the precautions necessary for small group meetings. But this is what your first day is going to be like. So you can have fun. You will laugh. You will laugh with people. You will laugh at yourself. You will be light. And then the second day through the fourth day, we will all meet together in the venue in the mornings and the evenings. But in the middle, some of you, in the afternoon session, some of you are going to be looking at dealing with your relationships primarily. Others of you are going to be looking at your abundance or your careers. And a third group of you will be just wanting to have an internal and private process. So you will be given a workbook with exercises in it, and you can spend the day in the park reading through the book, doing the exercises, and then meeting us in the evening. And just like in the recapitulation chamber, in the ancients, we are going to identify our energy drains. I'm not talking so much about the physical things, but I'm talking about the things we don't look at. I'm talking about our complaints. How much of our time do we spend in complaints instead of action? Find a solution. Just don't sit and complain. Blame. My God, I am the center of my world. I can find a solution here instead of blame them for a problem which I am a part of. If I'm a part of it, I'm going to find a solution to it. These kinds of things is what we are going to find that take our energy. And they're quite unconscious, but we're going to make them very conscious to us. We're going to reclaim all that energy back, just like they did in the old days, just like they did in the ancients, in the recapitulation chamber. And we will then intentionally redeploy that energy in a new habit. This is somewhat of a challenge for some of us to understand, is in our own personal practice of the recapitulation and remembering scenes out of our lives, that we think that that is the beginning and the end. It's not. What you need to do is, since you have freed up that energy by breathing it all in, by breathing those past scenes in, you then need to immediately redeploy it intentionally. Or after your recapitulation, you're going to go back and lose it again in the same habit. So you need to intentionally say, I'm going to take this chunk of energy and I'm going to do this. And you have to implement what Carlos Castaneda called a not doing. But what it is something different than what you did before. And then on the 5th day, we will be all together again, and we will all be learning how to maintain this retrieved energy in these new habits and patterns in our daily life and take it home. This event is going to be quite remarkable. Never quite done anything like this before, but it's going to be the Tensegrity Immersion in Croatia in September. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about Carol Tiggs and I working together, and Carol Tiggs and I wanting to present to you in the best way, in the cleanest way, our times with Carlos Castaneda. We want to teach you as we were taught. We want to teach you what we were taught. We don't want to deviate. We want the energy of our time and that part of the lineage to come to you. And Carol Tiggs and I were looking around the world, and what we see is that people are in need of something. And what came to us is that people are in need of developing their own personal power. Again, instead of spending time in blaming, complaining, or excuses, I can't do that. I'm not smart. I'm not fast. I'm too slow. I'm too old. Oh my God, I don't have time. Oh my gosh. Instead of all that, creating, manifesting, holding on to, building your personal power. So we have created our first online class called the 7 Essential Principles of Personal Power. And it's not going to be like some of these other ones that we've done, you know, with these live ones. It's not going to be like any of the live ones, which we then turned to video. It's not going to be, we even tried turning a complete workshop, recording that and turning it into video. None of that. It's not going to be just be re-recordings of magical passes. It's going to be a 7-week course beginning on June 1st. And you will be given 1 principle a week. You'll be given 4, 5, 6 videos to go through on your own, with explanations, with stories, with examples, and with exercises. And you'll have a digital workbook to go through and knock down. So each principle you will have an experience of, because that's the only way that you can embody principles, that you can keep them, make them your own, is put them in your body, is have an experience of them. Then the next week, the next principle, and the next, for 7 whole weeks. And Carol Tiggs and I are extremely pleased that at this time, we want to give it to you for a large discount of $100 off. And I think in the chat group, I think there's going to be a link if you want to read all about it. There's more information. Read about it now, read about it later. But there's going to be a link in the chat for you to read more about it. What it's going, like the 7 essential principles are some of the very same ones that we have been talking about here in these videos of the ancients. Know your battleground. Vision before things happen. Know your surroundings. Getting rid of the unnecessary. So you walk in free, light, lean and clean without baggage. Commit to what you're doing, your acts of power, and do your acts as if they are your last dance on earth. Fear nothing. In fact, learn how to just shrug it off. Shrug it off. Learn that when you're overly focused on something, and we all get that little tunnel vision, ooh, and we think this is going to bring us to the solution, but it never does, and we spend so much time here. Give it away. Let go. Leave it alone. Come back to it later. Come back to it later. And what you will see is you will come back to it with fresh eyes, and you will always have fresh input when you come back to it then. You will also learn something the seers did, something maybe you've had the experience of, and that's compressing or elongating time. And you're going to learn, just like we said that Carlos did and the ancients did, learn not to put yourself first and to look at the scene from behind. This journey begins with I and my what I want, and ends with acquiescence to something far bigger than myself. It was the journey of the ancients. It was the journey of the Nawals. It is the journey of us and Carlos Castaneda. So, I want to say that ends the formal part of this lecture, and that we want to open up now for your questions and answers. And like Alice, no, I'm going to give you the answers. You're going to ask the questions. And like Alice said before at the very beginning, please make your questions about the topics here, the topics that were discussed here. Practicality of the ancients, usability of it here. This is what is going to help us in our daily lives the most. You have to understand that Carlos Castaneda, many times when he met people for the first time, people wanted to regale him with their dreams. Over and over and over and over and over again. And he would just look at them. Yes, he was intent. He kept his focus. He was committed. He was going to listen. And after they were finished, he goes, that's all very good. How is that going to help you in your life? Person didn't have an answer. The energy of these tensegrity tools comes by our frequent use of moving from our conscious mind, usual conscious mind, all the chatter, all the noise, to unconscious space, or to the double, or the energy body space, or the sacred space, or the dream time, however you like to call it, over and over and over again. Tensegrity is not church on Sunday. It's not just going to a workshop or reserving it over there. It's every day. And in using tensegrity in this way, going back and forth, it gets easier and easier to enter the dream time. You go deeper and deeper into it, and you hear more and better and more detailed and profound answers to your questions, which prepares you for the rest of your life and definitely the hereafter. So, your questions. Alice says on your screen, you have got a little question thing up there. Great. And you're going to, I believe, type your questions in there. And then Alice is going to send them to me here. Okay, so I'm going to read them aloud as they come in. All right, here we go. Let's see what we got here. About video 1. Don Juan left the world. He had some companions. At our time, we are our own leaders. But can one person do the same as a group? Okay, how is it today? Can we lead ourselves to this stage, I guess this stage of development? Most definitely. Most definitely. It all depends upon you. Carlos went alone. He made his definitive journey alone. Don Juan went with a group of people. Carlos went alone. And he set up the paradigm for us to do it alone also. So yes, in our time, we can achieve the amount of energy. Hopefully, discipline. It's going to take discipline to do something different than what we usually do in order to get to that state. Cool. All righty. Don't have another question yet. Okay. I'm here. I'm available. I feel like I'm in one of those telecoms, you know, willing to take your order, ma'am. What can I do for you? Okay, here we go. How do we practically compress time? Ooh, this person is listening, whoever you are. Could you please elaborate on this concept of compressing and elongating time? Well, you're going to have a firsthand experience of it in the 7 Essential Principles online. But compressing time, let's just think about a very small experience you probably have already had. Let's say you were extremely focused on something. Let's say you loved bowling. Nobody bowls anymore, do they? But maybe you do. Maybe you love horseback riding. And you're into horseback riding so much that there's nothing but you and that horse. And that's all you feel. Time has disappeared. Everything else around you has disappeared. As a matter of fact, maybe after a 4-hour horseback ride, you go, wow, that just seemed like nothing at all. We compress time. We compress time by where we put our attention and our focus, intense focus. But like I said, in the online class, you're going to learn more. Good question. Thanks. Like that one. Like that one. Okay. Need another question, guys. You know, your job here is to entertain me. All righty? Okay. I will be attending the July Core in Pasadena. Yay, LA. Will there be a chance in Pasadena to discuss the path forward or further development with one of the staff there? I guess one of the staff there means one of the teachers. Sure. Of course, with social distancing. I understand magical passes is the foundation. But somehow dreaming, stalking, impeccability, sobriety, unbending intent, recapitulation, etc. factor into being a warrior who sees. Yes. And in the cores, there's going to be one in Italy and there's going to be one in LA, Los Angeles, Pasadena. You are going to get a sampling of visioning and dreaming, of recapitulating to find scenes. You're going to get a smattering of it all. And if after each session you wish to come up to me and go, oh my gosh, that was really fun and cool, but what the hell did I just do? Come up and ask. And I'll be very happy to explain it to you and outline it to you. Because many times when we're living in the experience, we're in the experience of it. And we're not quite analyzing us from the outside, which I can help you understand. So sure, yeah, we can have lunch together. Okay, how can we practically use the techniques of the ancient traditions and use it for dreaming in our day-to-day lives to see things that are out of the ordinary? Okay, like I said, the more that you use these techniques for your daily life and go back from conscious to energy body or unconscious mind again and again, the more in your day that your perception begins to shift. Your perception won't be stuck anymore in one place. It's going to be fluid. Your mind will be fluid. Your attachments, you won't be attached to things like you were before so heavily. I can't lose that. My prime possession. All that stuff will go away. And what you will be able to do with time is you'll be able, things in front of your eyes in your day will just start to change quite naturally. And everybody has a predilection. Some people see a lot about other people. They can see other people's patterns. They can see their patterns in their body gestures, or they can read even other people's minds. They kind of know what they're thinking. Some people see images of stuff. It's all different. It's going to be all kind of predicated on your energy field, what and how you see. And we call that in our tradition dreaming awake, seeing awake, dreaming awake. Yeah. But doing this frequently is going to get you where you want in that case. And yes, the world dismantles itself. The world, you can walk through the veils, see other worlds behind, walk in that one for a while, walk in that one for the next one for a while. Just like the gates of dreaming, gates of waking dream. Exactly the same. Cool. Great. Awesome. Okay. Boom-ba-doom. Can you clarify opening to spirit and dreaming how you will act beforehand? Oh, maybe that, I'm sorry. Dear person, I'm not quite sure what that question means. Can you clarify opening to spirit, opening to something bigger than myself, and dreaming how you will act beforehand, and dreaming how I will act beforehand? Maybe I'm not understanding your question, but what this says, before we get to the point of putting ourselves in the background, of opening ourselves up to something bigger than ourselves, we're kind of a bunch of self-centered schmucks. That's kind of what you're going to be, self-centered schmuck, until you learn to open yourself up. How would you want to dream yourself? Just keep an intention. Just keep an intention. Maybe something very simple. Can you focus on somebody else? Can you have a conversation with the stranger? And again, maybe it's 6 feet away, but be focused on them. Can you be focused on somebody else? Yes. This will help you look at the world from behind, not be number one, and acquiesce to something larger than yourself. So, cool. Still waiting for the next question. These are good questions, guys. I so appreciate it. I so thank you for listening. This is really, really cool. Can you explain more about the importance of language? Oh boy. Don't get me started. Okay. This is where semantics, UCLA comes out. No, I won't bore you. Okay. But you have to realize that the language we speak, the language we're given to speak when we're born, trains our mind to put sentences together in a certain way. So therefore our language dictates what we're saying to ourselves. The formation, the syntax of a sentence dictates what we think about. Like I was saying, for us, I-centric, self-centric, everything begins and ends with me, okay? But for the Mayans, everything, they were the last thing that they thought about. The act was the most important thing. That the Mayans was more of a community language, a language built to sustain a community, not a single individual. And so that's what you see. So you come into this world empty, no language at all. Gosh, when do we say our first words? Yes, they're usually dada and mama, yeah, because that's what we get coached, don't we? Don't you want to say dada and mommy? All the time. We are just so coached. How can we not say those first words? Okay, folks? We've got these big heads of heaven of us. Say daddy, say mommy. Okay? So we're coached to learn the language that we know. And by doing that, We build the synapses. It trains the synapses in our brains. It causes the biology in our brain to wire itself in a certain way. That's why Carlos Castaneda suggested that for much more fluidity, that for those of us who could learn multiple languages, please do. I always got as far as Spanish writing and reading, Italian writing and reading, but the speaking part, some of you are naturally gifted. You speak 5 languages already. Congratulations. Your minds must be incredibly fluid and not just wired one particular way. Cool. Fluidity, fluidity. Really cool. Okay, waiting for the next one to pop up here. Oh, does the 7 essential online class cover the recapitulation? The 7 essentials is pretty much a looking back and an examination of your life. So yes, it is a recapitulation. It's not a recapitulation in the sense so much we're going to be doing this and breathing it in and breathing it in. It's an awake recapitulation, but it's going to be question after question after question after question, and you're going to dig deep and deep. What's important to you? What's not important to you? How can you get rid of things? I think one of the most impressive parts of that series is about agreements. We all heard Don Juan say, "I am not going to abide by agreements I didn't make." So we will recapitulate our lives to see some agreements that we made 10, 20 years ago that might still be rolling through our lives and affecting our lives now. Maybe it's time to redo those agreements. Maybe it's time to let those people go. That's what we're going to be looking. So yes, I really like the way you put that together. The 7 essential principles to personal power is a lot of in-depth looking at oneself, is an in-depth recapitulation. Thank you. That was fabulous. Great. Fabulous. Yeah. Yeah. I love this interaction because I learn as much as you do. And it's great. Okay, how do you stay focused on the situation in front of you with so many distractions when you get tired? Or when you get tired? Darling person. It's our constant paying attention to the distraction which tires us out. You know what I mean? I'm writing a paper and then all of a sudden, oh, I got to write my grocery shopping list. I mean, I distract myself. I don't even need the outside world to do it for me. My mind has been triggered for distractions. You know what I mean? Oh, and all these ideas start floating in instead of the thing I'm working on. So I would say the way to do that the best, and again, in this online series, you're going to go through a lot of practices of it, but a very simple way of doing it is how to focus, make somebody or something else more important than you. It might be easier if you start with a human being and listen to their story. There's a lot of people out there who want to tell their story and they don't have someone to tell it to. Might be a friend of yours that's going through a rough time. Ask if you can help. Ask if you can listen. And just listen. Don't let your mind meander. As soon as they say one problem, don't you dare say, oh my God, that happened to me. Amazing, amazing, amazing. No. You let them be the most important person in your life at that moment. They get to say and dump whatever they want. And you listen. Give that a try. Now I'm going to give you something really hard since you asked a really good question. If your parents are alive, try listening to one of them for 10 solid minutes with your full attention. Whoa, that might be a little challenging. Strangers are easier. But if you want to go for the gusto, try your parents. Because you, in order to do that, you're going to have to get through years of judgments you have. Okay, give it a try. Okay. What is the discipline for the warrior in the modern world? Can you please explain the discipline with a metaphor? Oh gosh, I wish I was one of those people that had metaphors on hand. Well, maybe I can just take the first part of this. What is the discipline for the practitioner in the modern world? Living by these 7 principles, which are echoed in Carlos Castaneda's life, which are echoed in the ancients, the seers of ancient Mexico. What would that be like? That would be like a person who lived a very intentional life, who wasn't pulled by wanting to be liked or loved, who was very self-sustained, who knew how to retrieve his or her energy, pull it back to himself, and then use it for something different. Yeah. An intentional life. You would eat intentionally. You would go to work intentionally. And Carlos Castaneda said, at work, you give your focus. Back to the focus question. You give your focus. Someone's paying you. But after 5, that's magic time. Okay? But yeah, intentional. It's not haphazard. You're not helter-skelter. People and things are not pulling your attention. You love watching TV at night like I do, don't you, to relax, right? Yeah, well, can you give that up for a week? See what happens. What's your favorite hobby? Give it up for a while. Is it necessary in your life? Again, intentional living. Get rid of the unnecessary. So, cool. Dum-da-dum, dum-da-dum. What is the most effective way to collect personal power? Darling, there isn't one. If there was only one, what's the reason for me being here? Huh? Yeah. No. But that goes back to this wonderful online class. There's going to be these 7 principles of regaining your personal power, which is trust in yourself, abilities in yourself, looking at yourself. Let's just say there's 7 steps to it. It's not just one. Okay? But through the process, you will know who you are. And therefore, you will know your unique personal power. And you will know how to manage it. You will know how to gain it. That's the value. Oh, some of these things just flash up here. You know, guys, you know, when you're reading out over there. Can you give instructions for recapitulating? Okay, you talked about recapitulation. Can magical passes be a substitute to this practice? No. Recapitulation is recapitulation. Or is there any other clear-green practice which provides the same results as recapitulation? Well, again, looking deeply into yourself with exercises and stuff is a way to do a recapitulation. But the very original way that you recapitulate is you can write a list of the people that you know, the one that's written in the books. You write a list of all the people you know, and you take one name at a time at the top, current to past, that you remember, and you close your eyes, and you fan your head, and you just breathe it in, breathe in the memories. The memories do not have to be in order, but the memories just have to be focused on this one person. Now, a slightly easier way to do that, and it gives you the same effect, since you're looking for maybe a way out. You're looking for a way out, okay? So, first, recapitulate sexual partners, okay? That can't be more than 120, okay? Right? Got it. Okay. Then, recapitulate your work experiences, the 5 or 6 jobs that you've had. Then, and all the people, you know, involved there. Then, recapitulate your education. Then, recapitulate your teenage years and your brothers and sisters. At the end, recapitulate your mommy and your daddy. That breaks it up into little doable chunks, which helps us feel, my God, I got through a package here. I'm feeling really good. Now I'm going to go in for some more. Okay? Yeah. Carlos, this is much more sophisticated, but Carlos always taught us ways how to trick and fool our ego. But you have to know how you are put together and how your ego works in order to do that. But that is one trick. Give it little things that it might, and it doesn't want to do the whole big thing, little baby ego. But it'll do one thing, little thing, 5 names, 5 little names it'll do, and it's going to feel so proud of itself that it's going to do more. Tricks, tricks, tricks. Okay. Okay. Okay, hold on. Can the corona crisis be an opportunity for me to evolve? Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. It's hard right now, I think, the virus itself. But there's so much information out there. Do you know what's true and what's real? The leader is saying one thing at the beginning, he's saying something different now. Business is saying something different at the beginning. Research is saying something different at the beginning. Everyone's contradicting. Each different lab contradicts the other lab. This lab, who's got a virus vaccine, says this lab's work isn't any good. You know, and it's just, we're in a mess. How you can evolve is, during COVID, follow the precautions as if your life depended on it. It just might. We're not even sure of that, right? What is the most recent thing? It's the elderly, but now papers have been published a couple of days ago that only people with diabetes, hypertension, or obesity actually died, regardless of age. So, get centered in yourself, take care of yourself. Don't get in arguments. Do not waste your energy getting in arguments over it with your friends. Talk about it with your friends. But no one's got the exact truth, because we are living right now in a very fast-moving time where lots of truths and lots of falsifications are coming out really fast. But just focus, take care of yourself. Don't let all that email, the email string this morning. Oh my gosh, there's Apple, there's Washington Post. In the United States, we got the New York Times, we got the Los Angeles Times. First thing in your email every morning, COVID. Maybe read 1 or 2 that you're drawn to. Don't sit there and spend your whole day on it. It's going to drive yourself crazy. Okay? So yeah, start picking, in COVID season, start picking the things you're going to pay attention to and the things you're going to leave behind, you're not going to pay attention to. So that you can start living essentially, functionally, free of idealities and pseudo goals. Man has only function as his guiding force. And shamans call that impeccability. Impeccable. Okay. Cool. Let's see. How do we dream purpose? Well, how do we dream purpose? Again, I might not be answering this one accurately because I'm not sure what you exactly mean. And if you were live in front of me, I could ask you. But how do we dream purpose? We have a lot of different purposes in our lives. It's not like we have one which takes us for our whole lives. I think that was the baby boomer generation where they had one career and it lasted their whole lives and then they got a pension from it and then they died, right? No, we have lots of purposes. We might have the purpose of raising a family. We might have the purpose of having a career. We have the purpose of being good friends. We have lots of different purposes. We have lots of different hobbies. We have lots of things to do now. How do you dream all those different purposes? Just take the one in front of you and do it the best you can. Impeccability, best you can. So please don't be wasting your time on finding the ultimate one big purpose. There's a purpose for your career. Maybe spend time on that. There's a purpose for your family. Spend time on that. But not just one big one. Bunch of little ones. Okay. It seems like the dreaming state that you are discussing is a connecting to the eternal present moment. outside the illusion of time, past and future. Congratulations. Yes. I mean, it happens at all our Tensegrity events. I find the magical passes are very effective at doing this, but wondering if you could speak to how to reconnect to this state during the normal parts of the day. So the question is, how do you bring, I guess, the magical passes or this state during the day? Okay, like we've been talking about here, let's say you're on the subway in the morning and you're going to work. Okay, you can't sit there and do magical passes with people, even though it's probably going to be fewer people around you now. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to vision your day. You are going to make that leap from conscious mind to unconscious mind, which the magical passes do, which the recapitulation does, which the dreaming does. And you're going to vision before you get there, your day at work. You're going to vision who you're going to talk to first, if you're going to go to the coffee room, if you're going to go to your desk, what you're going to be doing on your computer. Do that. Do what we've been talking about to move your perception from ordinary to non-ordinary. And back again. Carlos Castaneda, in a very early interview with Sam Keen, said that Don Juan, because he was kind of the last of that style of being in the wall, where he was living in close proximity with his apprentices. They all lived together. They all lived on Don Juan's hacienda. Don Juan was very versed. He was a businessman. He had businesses. He owned a hacienda, and he was in the wall, and he had to take care of all these people. So Don Juan really was good, just like Carlos was, between merging myth and the practical together. They're stellar at both these things. But Carlos's way was not to, how can I say it? I might have lost my train of thought. Carlos's way, because he was the very last Noel, was not to live in a group. So we all lived separate. And he said in that early interview that because Don Juan lived together, they could maintain a certain level of non-ordinary reality a lot of the time because they carried a lot of silence and they stayed together. But Carlos says that isn't our way. Our way is the way that he lived. He went into non-ordinary reality and came back to normal reality. Let's go to the accountants. Go back into the dream time, come back into, oh, got to write a book for the publisher. No. Back and back and back and back again. That's our way. He says we will slip in and out of non-ordinary reality. But that is our way. Okay? So you can try to do something full time. I understand, because the energy of the magical passes or the recapitulation is extremely delicious. But in your day, move back and forth. Okay? Great. How do we clean our agreements? Ooh. I mean, is it enough only to recapitulate? No. Okay. Again, it's in the 7 Essential Principles class. And again, you're going to have 7 videos of all the things we're going to do about this. These things are packed. Anyway, how do you clean your agreements? First, you have to realize which ones you're keeping. And you have to go through a process of what are the agreements you have at work with your boss? What are the agreements you have with your partnerships? What with your friends? You know, many of us don't even realize that, you know, with certain of my friends, I have an agreement, just it's a silent agreement that I made with them that they are going to, they will always design where we go together. That's just an agreement I made. Is that helping me? Is that hindering me? Do I want to rewrite that agreement? See, a lot of the agreements we've made aren't even between 2 people. We have made them within ourselves about somebody else. And then there are those that we have made with people. We made agreements with our parents. What were those agreements? That we were going to take care of them when they were old? Is that something we need to revisit? Is that something we want to change or adapt to a more modern time? This is what I'm talking about. It's called self-examination. It was interesting. Early 1960s, they used to call enlightenment, self-realization. self-realization, knowing what self is, all of the ego bits and all of the ethereal bits. Self-realization, I realize who I am, both magic and a little bit of devil. Okay? So, in dealing with your agreements, you're going to have to dig up those agreements that you made and hopefully make new ones. Become lighter, make new ones. Have evolving agreements always. Cool. How different would be dreaming than creative visualization? In our path, any time that we, hold on, so hold the question, then the little cell phone goes crazy. Do you envision yourself to be where you are now? Yes. I did envision myself to be where I am now. But your first question, how different would be dreaming than creative visualization? In Tensegrity, any time that we move from ordinary reality to non-ordinary reality is called dreaming. Any time spent in non-ordinary reality, whether it's visioning, I guess you want to call it intentional creative visualization, self-creative visualization maybe might be a better word, is dreaming. We call it dreaming. It's dreaming awake. And then, of course, we have dreaming asleep. But it's all dreaming. Anytime you visit that other side of yourself, it's all dreaming. So what would be different between, so there is no difference. Going to creative visualization is dreaming. There is no difference. There's no difference at all. You're dreaming yourself to be in a certain position, doing a certain thing, being kind to people. And especially, please, vision those encounters which are challenging for you, which, you get a phone call from that person, you go, I don't want to talk to you now. Those are the encounters you really need to vision beforehand if you're going to see them live, amazingly, because it's going to be a little rough. But envision it going smoothly. And amazingly, it goes much better than if you didn't do it. Seriously. Okay, questions. What is non-ordinary reality? You mentioned moving between the two. How do you know you are in one or the other? Okay, dear person, okay. Maybe you're a brand new person. Awesome, cool. When you do the movements, the dance steps, the magical passes, what they do to you is they make you silent in the mind. Non-ordinary reality starts with silencing this. Okay? Our concrete, our conscious mind, our conscious days, we're conscious of this world, is all about this is going a mile a minute. Input comes into our eyes, our mind immediately goes, that's a chair, that's a table, that's a bench, that's a floor, that's a grandma. No, it is nonstop going up there. You're not even aware what's going up there, but it's nonstop. Non-ordinary reality, I think, would be the easiest to induce it so you can get a sense of what it is through the movements. And when you do them for 20 minutes, if you're a beginner, and you will feel a lightness, you'll feel a vitality, you'll feel an alertness, you'll feel like not so much noise up here, you'll have very clear thoughts, maybe for the first time in our lives. But that, anything in a state of silence is not, any state induced through silence is non-ordinary reality. Okay? I hope that helps. And thank you for asking the question. When we do the exercise to visualize future events being successful, and fear comes in and makes the event a nightmare. Oh, darling, how can we stop fear coming in? Oh my gosh. Okay. You are the creator of your conscious mind and the creator of your dreams. They all begin with you. Don't let fear get into your visioning. if you want to look at somebody coming your way and it's going to be an obstacle to you, it's an obstacle. Sure, you fear an obstacle. And you vision yourself going around the obstacle. You vision yourself negotiating with that person. That's the obstacle. You envision yourself going through it. You envision yourself without fear. Again, you are the curator and the creator of your dreams, of your visionings, of the direction they go. So don't let them be turned into nightmares. Nightmares for the day. No, non-ordinary reality. Direct it for clean. Okay? Don't let fear come in. No. Let's see. Boom, boom. If we can't recapitulate our life totally, how can we gain enough power? Why can't you recapitulate your life totally? It took me 18 months to get through mine the first time. Then each time afterwards you do it. I did it 4 times. It's just quicker and quicker and quicker. This is that, no, you are already dooming yourself. You are dreaming yourself. You are visioning yourself with these bad words that you won't have enough time. You do have the time. You will have the power. You've got to put it in your schedule. You've got to get rid of all the unnecessary, again, and you got to make the time to do it. 20 minutes a day. When you get up, when you go to bed, maybe on the weekend for a few hours. Figure it out, okay? But you can do it. Is that possible if we can't recapitulate? Is that possible, though, if we can't recapitulate ourselves to the fullest? So I think the question is he going to have all the power if you can't, if he or she can't recapitulate himself to the fullest? Okay, let's get something clear. Your mind is not infallible. It is the most fallible organ we have. It maybe remembers 1/4 of what we have experienced in our lives. So you're not going to remember everything. It's impossible to remember every single second. What your mind will do is remember the big moments, the big happy, the big sad. Start with those. Those are where most of our power is held in place. So recapitulate those first and get that power back. That's going to be your biggest boost. The bad scenes, the extremely good ones. Get those first. When you're recapitulating your, partners, when you're recapitulating your work, do the bad scenes first. And then let the rest fill in. Okay. Okay. I think that's the end of our questions. That's the end of our questions. We're closing up our time together. So I had a wonderful time. I hope this was informative. I hope this was inspirational. I hope you can use some of the things here in your daily life. And I hope to see you in Croatia for the best immersion ever. And then I believe there's going to be a link in the chat. Sign up, learn more about these 7 essential principles of personal power and see if it's for you. And again, there's a discount on it only till June 1st. You can get $100 off only to June 1st. So if you act now, it might prepare you. You see, the thing is about actions. When we set our intention to do something in the future, all of our reserves and our focus and our energy hones on doing that thing. And so if we have a lot of lead time, before time the event, and every day that event comes into our mind and we're dreaming that event, we're thinking about that event, and online or live, we are adding so much more of our energy and our attention to it that that event is going to be even more spectacular because of what you have added to it. So I leave you with that. There's more for you to read. Check the link, and I will see you later. I will see all of you sometime in the future. Love you all. Take care of yourself and others.